We were sitting, all of us, before the Maharshi, and he said something in Tamil. The crowd looked towards Gopalda and started laughing. It happened that Balarama Reddy, an ex-Patanjali disciple, was present. The Maharshi was joking and saying something, "How lucky we are today. Look, both Sri Krishna and Balaram, Krishna's brother, are with us today." By this time, Gopalda was more or less his normal, jovial self again. I was much relieved to see that a thaw had set in, but he was still not quite the Gopalda we knew. He would still fall silent from time to time. On the second day of Gopalda's stay at the ashram, an unforgettable thing happened. After breakfast, the Maharshi was sitting on the stone seat on the veranda, and we were all sitting on the floor before him. Someone produced a small harmonium and requested Gopalda to sing a bhajan. I was sitting just behind him, and he turned and asked me what he should sing. I whispered that any song would do. Gopalda started to sing the well-known Bengali song, Kanu Kehi Ra. He could sing only the first line and the first part of the second. Then he fell with a bang onto the instrument. I could not and would not dare to speak about the Maharshi's reaction, but every other person there was horrified, aghast. I was at my wit's end, feeling petrified. I didn't know what to do. The upper part of Gopalda's body was lying motionless on the harmonium. I looked at the Maharshi. What did I see? I saw him looking unblinkingly at Gopalda. Everybody else was standing or sitting motionless. Some dared not to breathe even, it seemed. We were all spellbound. My mind ceased to function. I just sat there, waiting for I know not what. The tableau went on for some time. I fear I am not in a position to tell you how long. But after a while, Gopalda appeared to get back his senses, coming into regular consciousness. Slowly, very slowly, he sat up. His face looked flushed, deep red, and it glowed. He got up and prostrated himself before the Maharshi. The Maharshi was still gazing at him. And then the Maharshi turned his face and was looking at, well, I know not what, because his sight turned inward, away from the scene before him. There was no sign, nothing to give us a clue. Then Gopalda stood up and started to leave the hall with unsteady steps. We followed him silently. After some time, Gopalda was the same Gopalda, the Gopalda I knew, loved, and revered. Then came the day for Gopalda's intended trip to Patanjali. After breakfast, Gopalda came to take leave of the Maharshi. He brought the wooden case with Radha Krishna's murtis in it and showed it to the Maharshi. The Maharshi took the box in his hands, and as the light was poor in that darkish corner of the veranda, he turned it this way and that and looked at those murtis. Then he returned it to Gopalda without comment. Gopalda was kneeling before him and told him that he would be leaving for Patanjali. He also told the Maharshi of his plan to visit the 3 religious centers, the Vaishnava Center in Sri Rangam, the Shakta Center at Meenakshi at Madurai, and the Shiva Center at Rameshwaram. He asked the Maharshi's blessings so that his pilgrimage would be crowned with success. The Maharshi beamed at Gopalda and nodded his head to signify his assent. And then Gopalda asked the Maharshi for his permission to take me with him. The Maharshi smiled his permission again, tilting his head, and then instructed the ashram office to arrange to send Balarama Reddy to meet us at Villapuram on our way to the south with letters to the Maharshi's devotees at Sri Rangam. Balarama Reddy was also instructed by the Maharshi to arrange for Gopalda's stay at the house in Madurai, where he had had his realization. Lastly, Balarama Reddy carried letters addressed to the temple authorities at Rameshwaram to arrange for Gopalda's reception when he arrived there. I would like to record what Gopalda later told me about his experiences at Ramana ashramam, with the instruction to relate these to the Maharshi in seclusion on my final return to Tiruvannamalai. Gopalda said that the moment he set foot on the station platform at Tiruvannamalai, he found the whole environment surcharged with one persistent inquiry like mantra. Who am I? Gopalda said there was no getting away from this inquiry, which kept repeating itself with hammering blows. He said he could find no relief from this, what he felt at the time, this terrible conundrum. He tried several answers, but all in vain. For instance, when he said, I am Krishnaprem, the retort was, who is Krishnaprem? Who is Krishnaprem? Then Gopalda said, I am Sri Krishna's das, servant. The immediate reaction was the inquiry, who is Sri Krishna? No matter what reply Gopalda gave, there was no escape or respite from that ever-sounding and agonizing inquiry. Gopalda went on to say that when he came and sat before the Maharshi, that this ever-persistent phenomenon kept on, and he felt desperate. Then Gopalda changed his tactics and asked the question, who are you? And with this question, he looked at the Maharshi. He said he was not prepared for what followed. The Maharshi, or the Maharshi's body, just vanished. He was startled, but he said he realized what the Maharshi wanted to convey, and that is, the real Maharshi was not that body possessing mind or life force. But the answer still evaded him. He told me that he spent the whole of that night walking restlessly. There was no peace for him. He confided to me that he asked Radharani who Krishna was, but he did not tell me what was the answer Radharani gave him, though her answer eased the otherwise unbearable situation. And you will remember that the Maharshi sent home flowers the next morning, and that Gopalda was a little less tense. But he continued to be hurried because he could not find the proper answer to that inquiry. Now we come to the morning that Gopalda started singing. Gopalda told me that as soon as he started singing, he lost consciousness. He went into a trance, and for the first time in his life, experienced Ananda. Yes, this is what Gopalda confided to me, though I confess that the inept words are mine. After I got back to the ashram, I took the first opportunity to narrate to the Maharshi not only these incidents, but also the other amazing things that befell Gopalda. There was no one else present except a Telugu friend of mine to act as interpreter, The Maharshi listened without any outward reaction until I came to Gopalda's version of what happened to him when he started to sing on that fateful morning. Now here I cry Pakavi. I confess fully and freely that I just could not utter the word Ananda. Why? Well, I was told that Ramananda was reserved for only those who trod the Advaita path. So I kept fumbling and said, Gopalda said that he felt, Gopalda thought that he, and so on. Slowly the Maharshi turned to me and uttered a single word, Anandam. I had been staying at Ramana ashram for about a year when Gopalda came for the Maharshi's darshan. I have tried in passing to convey the Maharshi's usual, normal behavior towards men. Seemingly, he gave the impression that he was not at all concerned with what men did or said or how they acted. But occasionally, he did not hesitate to show his displeasure if any gross lapse occurred. So I was astonished beyond words to find the same Maharshi acting like a human being for a change in Gopalda's case. One cannot question the genuineness of the affection and loving care the Maharshi showed for Gopalda. He asked Dorai Swami, one of the oldest disciples of Sri Aurobindo, for pecuniary help to sustain the Padanchari ashram in those early days, if he had met Gopalda. The Maharshi said to him that Gopalda was a rare specimen of a sadhaka, a spiritual aspirant, in whom both bhakti and dhyana resided side by side. My friend, the late veterinary doctor Ananta Narayan Rao, gave me this account. He told me that most of those who were present that morning when Gopalda sang could see that Gopalda was no singer at all, that he could not even play the musical instrument, and above all, he sang in a language not known to the listeners. But still, Dr. Rao felt moved and tears gathered in his eyes. Dr. Rao told me that the Maharshi's comment was that if 3 such Param Bhagavats loudly sang devotional songs, atheists would become theists. Rao did not know why the Maharshi said 3. Swami Viswanathan, perhaps the oldest devotee of the Maharshi, told me that they were all amazed to witness this uncharacteristic reaction of Bhagavan. Before closing this account of Gopalda's trip to South India, I would like to clarify. My attention has been drawn to some stories which are being circulated about what happened at Ramana Ashramam. These stories are not correct. This is the true story. In fact, those stories only serve to detract from the greatness of the Maharshi and Gopalda. And sooner or later, the truth had to come out. Lastly, I would remind those authors of fairy tales that truth is stranger than fiction.